So we've come a long way now. There are just 4 more chapters, 15, 16, 17, and 18. And last class we did about the modes. So we studied about the modes. It was a very important chapter. Today is a chapter which many people learn. Actually, chapter 15 is a chapter which so many people actually learn it. They learn it by heart. First of all, it's short, but it's very important. I have put one of the lectures of Prabhupada for us to refer to. We've gone live, isn't it, Prabhuji? We are live now, no?
Yes, Mataji, it is live.
So, has Virendra Prabhu left the meeting?
No, Mataji, Jalpa Mataji has left, I think. She
Jalpana.
joined, maybe.
She might join again. Okay, so chapter 15 is called the Purushottam Yoga or Yoga of the Supreme Person. And so we have finished the first 6 chapters of karma, mainly karma, and everything else is also covered in the first 6 chapters. In the second 6 chapters, we finished with bhakti. And now in the last 6 chapters, we finished two of the chapters, and now we have 4 more. They're all mainly jnana, but all throughout Prabhupada has inserted bhakti. He has always related it to bhakti because ultimately they all lead to bhakti only. Bhakti is the most important thing that the Gita is teaching us. And before I start the class, let me pay my humble obeisances to the beautiful deities of Sri Sri Radha Govinda temple, to Srila Prabhupada, to his disciple Jayapataka Swami Guru Maharaj, and to temple president, His Grace Namnishtha Das Prabhu, and my Guru Aishwarya Mataji. नम ओम विष्णु पादाय कृष्ण प्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिन इति नामने नामसे सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारणे ओम अज्ञान तिमिरांधस्य ज्ञानांजन शलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। श्री चैतन्य मनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपं कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्री गुरु श्री युतपदकमलं श्री गुरुं वैष्णवं च श्री रूपम सागर जातम सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजन सहितं कृष्ण चैतन्य देवं श्री राधा कृष्णा पादन सहगण ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितं च। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीन बंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगे राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। So chapter 15, in 14, we had gone through the modes of material nature. We saw how what is liberation actually and what is the conditioning for the living entity. And we looked at the description of how the soul is actually bound by the 3 modes of material nature. So material nature is actually made up of 3 modes. That is, material nature is basically Maya, and she is Durga Devi, and she has these ropes which she binds all the souls which are conditioned because of their desire to enjoy separately from Krishna. And then from 14.10 to 13, we saw how we recognize the supremacy of a mode within a person. That means a person is usually, the more he listens to which mode he follows, he becomes predominantly of that mode. For example, Duryodhana is mainly in the Rajogun, forever wanting more and more material desire fulfillment. Dhrashtra is in Tamogun because he is most of the time blind to what is good, what is not, considering what is not good to be good. He closes his eyes to what the scriptures are saying. He knows that this is Krishna, but he still is unable to follow. So he's in Tamogun. Arjuna is, of course, in Sattvagun, although he's a pure devotee, he's a Shuddha Sattva, like he's a absolutely pure devotee, but just for the sake of giving us a Gita, Krishna creates that situation where he's in confusion. And so he displays signs of Sattvagun, which is full of compassion and goodness and knowledge, all those things. And then So that's why the modes are, everybody has a predominant mode. All the three modes affects everyone, but you will have a predominant mode based on the mode with which you are mostly associating yourself with. How do you associate yourself with the modes? You associate yourself through your actions. And actions do not only include the things you do, but they include the things you think, the things you speak, the things you do. Everything is included in action. So what are the different modes in which you act? Once you have practice, you'll be able to figure out that now I'm behaving in Sattvagun. Now my action is in association with Rajogun or Tamogun. But the moment you associate yourself with Krishna and you offer what you're doing to Krishna, you will rise above the three modes. That is transcending the modes. So, and Krishna also has explained to us how action in the different modes, what kind of actions people will do. And Krishna also explains to us what is the result of a person being in a particular mode. Where will he go after he dies? For example, a person is in Tamogun, he will be going to, they will turn on my camera. He will go to the lower planets or hellish planets, or he will get a body of an animal or a lower, like plant or tree or something like that. But if he's in Rajogun, then he will take birth on the earth again, and he will have to continue with the same fruitive results, karma bandhana and all that. But if he's in Sattvagun, especially once he starts a devotional service, he will surely get a human birth, and he will enjoy maybe in higher planets for some time, or in the earth itself in some good families. And then once his pious deeds that he has accumulated are over, then he will be starting over again. But the idea of Sattvagun is it's also binding. You still stay in the material world. But when you transcend the three modes, where you consciously always think of Krishna and you're constantly doing devotional service, chanting daily, doing all the prescribed things for devotional service, you're doing your sadhana properly. And then in which case, when you reach the Shuddha Sattvagun, then there will be no return. You'll be going back to Godhead for once and for all. So which is what Srila Prabhupada wants all of us to achieve. So in ISKCON, it gives us opportunities to be in association of devotees. It gives us opportunities to discuss the Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. There are so many classes throughout the day now and then. You can be in the association of devotees online. You don't even need to go anywhere. And ISKCON gives us a lot of opportunities to study. They have so many levels of exams, and ISKCON Mangalore is conducting it free, but in several other ISKCONs they do conduct it, but with a cost which they use for the temple constructions, etc. Namnishra Prabhu has been very, very generous, and he has been giving us these classes for absolute free, although he pays a big chunk for the Zoom connections, which otherwise would just go off when it is 40 minutes. And you can't even reconnect for the next 10 minutes. So just so the classes go smoothly and the devotees get the association of other devotees, and Namnishra Prabhu has given this favor. So there is no way we can repay it, because the knowledge we gain through these classes conducted by the ISKCON Mangalore is priceless. There is no price attached to it. If we look at chapter 15 now, in chapter 15, we will try to finish up to Purushottam Yoga, transmigration. So we'll try to finish till 15.11, but let's see. 15.1 and 2 are both very, very important. So we will spend some time on that. 15.1 to 15.5 in the first section is basically going to tell us how it is important to become detached from the material world. Why? Because the material world, which we are seeing around us, is basically a reflection of the spiritual world. So it's not really true. It's just like, suppose a tree has a mango in it. You're getting so engrossed in the material world where the mango is basically just a reflection. You go grab the mango and you try to eat it, and then it's, just over. It's so temporary, and it's not even a permanent joy. So whereas in the spiritual world, it's, everything is like, it's permanent. There's nothing temporary there in the spiritual world. But to reach there, you have to purify ourselves. So how to do that is explained in these verses. And then 15.6 to 15.11, it is Purushottam Yoga, transmigrations, which is how the soul moves from one body to another. So we get a better understanding of that. And Krishna's position as maintainer is being established once more in 15.12 to 15. And then in the last section, there are only 20 verses in this chapter. In the last section of Purushottam Yoga, there is the 3 shloka Bhagavad Gita. So just we had Chatushloki in chapter 10. Now in chapter 15, we have the Trishloka, the three shlokas which actually summarize everything that is there in the Vedas and Vedantas. And of course, Gita is always the summary of everything. And these three verses are the summary of everything. So let's begin the first section of becoming detached from the material world. Why? Because it's a reflection of the spiritual world. So let's look at the first verse. It says, Shri Bhagavan Vacha Urdhvamulam Madashakam Ashwatham Prahuravyayam Chandamsi Yasya Parnani Yastam Veda Savedavit. Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is telling us, it is said that there is an imperishable banyan tree. So this is a very unique way that chapter begins. It says that it straight away starts talking about a banyan tree. It says that this imperishable banyan tree, it has its roots upward and its branches go down, and their leaves are the Vedic hymns. One who knows this tree is a knower of all the Vedas. I think Ravi Prabhu has sent attendance link. So before you continue the class, please mark attendance, Jalpa Mataji and Virendra Prabhu. So we'll quickly go through some notes upon this first verse. It's in this section of Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna talks about the material world. He's telling us about the tree and its reflection, which is the material world, and how we living entities, we are getting entangled in the material world. Whereas it is just a reflection of the spiritual world. The spiritual world is the source of the material world, and the need for developing detachment is explained. Analogy used is a banyan tree. It's an analogy to show how the material world is just the perverted reflection of the spiritual world. And what are the lessons we learned from this analogy of comparing the material and spiritual worlds to the tree? It's just an analogy. What is that? It's just a way of showing us what are these two worlds, right? Just a way of showing us. So Lord Krishna is comparing the material world to an inverted banyan tree with its roots upwards and branches downward because it is being reflected on the water. This can be seen of a tree when standing on the bank of a water. You can see the reflection of the tree. The tree is analogized with the spiritual world and the reflection to the material world. Desires of the living entities are compared to water. So the whole reason why there is a material world is because there is water. If there was no water, there would be no material world. So it is because of the desires of the human, of the living entities to enjoy separate from God, that the whole, that the water is created. The water is a desire, because of which the whole material world is just a reflection on that water of desires. The desires of living entities are compared to the water, which is the very cause of the reflection to happen, or the cause of the reflection, which is analogous to material world. That is, it's a cause of the material world. So the desires are the cause where living beings are situated. Because of that we're situated in this material world. We're trapped here. We think that we are free, but actually we are trapped. A living being performing fruitive activities is like a bird jumping from one branch to another, enjoying the fruits of the tree. What are the fruits of this tree? Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. So dharma should actually be done without any desire for Artha, Kama, and Moksha. And when person does his dharma solely for the Supreme Lord, it becomes bhakti. Otherwise, when you do your dharma just for getting Artha, Kama, or Moksha, all that is basically fruitive activities. It will lead you to more and more entanglement, and you just keep jumping from one branch to another. You'll never be able to go back to the original tree where you actually belong. So material world is not only unreal and perverted reflection of spiritual world, it's also temporary. Why? Because every time there'll be dissolution, creation, dissolution, creation. And even within the creation, so many yugas are happening, and we are just dying. We're getting a new body, dying, getting a new body, and not even having any control, because the nature doesn't. Krishna gives us choice of what actions to do, but based on our actions, the body that we get is totally not our choice. This material nature is very stringent. The way we have maintained desires in our heart and the way we have been associated with the different modes, accordingly, we will just have to forcefully take the body. We don't have any control over the body that we will get. So the living beings, what do? They keep wandering in the material world, and which is not even permanent. And based on their activities, there are two things. Either they get liberated from the material energy and they go back. If their activities are full of Shuddha Sattva, dedicating themselves to Krishna, they're doing Manmana Bhava Madbhakto, always thinking of Krishna, then they go back to spiritual world. Other living entities are either promoted down to the lower planetary systems or lower species, and no living entity in the whole material world, even Lord Brahma, is in the material world, where no living entity is right from Brahma to the insignificant ant will ever live forever. So everything is temporary. Everybody's life is temporary. They all have birth, death, old age, and disease. So both have duration of lifespan, after which they have to take birth in a different body. And so the Lord has said that this material world is a dukkhalayam. It's a place of sorrows. Ashashvatam. It's a temporary. It's a place of misery. It's full of the three kinds of miseries, which are Adi Bhautik, Adi Adhyatmik, and Adi Daivik. So Adi Daivik is the different natural disasters which keep coming to us, like rains or floods. Adi Bhautik is when other living entities will disturb us, and Adi Adhyatmik is when you are yourself creating mental and physical stress because of your own doing, your own overthinking or whatever. Everything we see in this material world, which is dukkhalem ashashvatam, full of miseries. Why are the miseries there? Because we are associating ourselves with this body. Why are we associating ourselves with this body? Because we have desires to enjoy separately from Krishna. We have been envious of Krishna and we have desired. Hence, we are here, trapped here. Like how there's a jail and there are some people who do mischief and who do wrong things. They are put into the jail. Similarly, we are put into this. Our soul is actually who we really are, and we are trapped in this gross and material and gross body and subtle body, and we are forced to be here till the time that we will realize what is our real constitutional position and engage in devotional service. The form and quality in a spiritual world is completely different, made of Sat, Chit, and Anand. Nothing in the spiritual world is formless without any qualities existing as impersonal light. It's very, very much personal. So it's wrong for people to think that when you say spiritual world, it's just a lot of light and you become one with the light. And that is a very, very big misconception, which the impersonalists strongly believe. They believe that the whole world is like one Maya, first of all. And then they believe that the only thing existing is a Brahman and it's a light. And then they want to just merge into the light. And then, of course, there may be some peace there. There is no disturbance, no activity, but it's very, very boring. And just being merged and staying in that situation is mostly because people want to just, run away from this miseries of the world. They have some bad time with some relationships, and then they want to forget everything and be peaceful. But that is really not the purpose of our life, because we need to go back to the spiritual world and serve Krishna as part and parcel of him. And when we start doing that now itself in the material world, that is what will qualify us to go back to the spiritual world, where there are, everybody has their forms and qualities, and it's not just impersonal light. It is very, very much personal. So the leaves of the tree are compared, the leaves of this particular tree is explained in 15.1. They compare to Vedic hymns, and the living entity is actually hopping from branch to branch, trying the different fruits. One should not become bewildered. It's very important that we don't get carried away by any of dharma, artha, kama, moksha. And then because you'll entangle and we have to enjoy the fruit. So one needs to understand the purpose of Vedas. What is the purpose of the Vedas? It is simply to understand Krishna. There is no other purpose. Who is Krishna? He is a compiler of the Vedanta. The end of the Veda, end of all knowledge is to understand Krishna. So what do we see here in this picture? There is a reflection. The whole water is actually desire. The spiritual world is the original place, and the material world is a reflection. It's upside down. The material world is actually an upside down banyan tree of the original spiritual world. Therefore, it's very similar to a spiritual world in many aspects, but it is basically a reflection, and so nothing is real in the sense that everything is temporary over here. It's not real. It is all temporary, and therefore it is it is all got a beginning and an end. So material world is described as an upside down banyan tree, is what we learned in this verse. Why the entire material world is compared to a banyan tree? Because for one, engaged in fruitive activities, there is no end to this banyan tree, which is very, very deep rooted. And you have to wander from branch to branch. So why is it compared to a banyan tree? Because banyan tree is like one of the huge trees with so many branches and it's got roots which come which also hang from down. It has so many branches. The material world is ideal to be compared to such a huge tree. What is the purpose of the Vedic hymns? Basically, the Vedas are to elevate us. It's not to enjoy, do all the dharma and stuff given as per the Varnashrama explained in the Vedas, and then do it just for getting all the enjoyment and benefits. No, that's not what is the purpose. You're supposed to elevate yourself when you're studying the Vedic hymns, and then gradually you have to shift from your material conditioning nature to a spiritual life. Why should we understand this tree of illusions? Very important to understand, because once you understand this indestructible tree of illusion, you can get out of it by the sword of detachment. So Krishna will be explaining to us, I think in 15.3, that how can you escape from this tree, the reflection which we are so much caught up in. You need to have a weapon. You need to have a sword, which is detachment, by which you can cut it off and you can go back to the Godhead. And what is the process of extrication? Only way to do it is through devotional service, which is you keep on doing. You can't go, okay, I know there is God, but then you don't do anything about it. You have to serve him. And then inside your heart, even if you know there is God, unless you externally also display, that by doing some devotional service, by chanting, by thinking of him, by reading about him, by listening to his lectures, by associating with devotees, if you don't do the devotional service physically outwards, it is going to not help you to develop that love for Krishna within you. So devotional service is the only way you can escape from this big banyan tree full of so many roots going upwards and everything, and is going to help you to go back to your original constitutional position of your soul. So detachment from material conditions and the process of attachment by transcendental service is the way. So chapter 15 actually refutes the whole impersonalism theory, which says that the spiritual world is only, the whole world is undifferentiated Brahman. So what does it mean to know the Vedas? It means that you know how to cut. The Vedas actually teach us how to cut this big tree by using the weapon of detachment. And somebody who is attracted to all these Vedic formulas, they do these get different kind of benefits, and they're only attracted to all those benefits, then they are being carried away by the leaves and they do not know the actual purpose of the Vedas. Actually, it is a long lecture, but I thought it'd be nice for us to go through it. I haven't had the time to edit it, so I've just copy pasted the lecture. I hope we will enjoy reading it together. So this is a description of this is basically 15.1, which Srila Prabhupada has given this lecture. It is a transcript of the lecture. So it will be very conversational in style. And it is, spoken in Vrindavan in the year 1973 on October 28th. So this is a description of the Vedic literature. Vedash sarva rahameva vedya. I am the, Krishna is saying that Krishna is the aham. Krishna is saying I. Krishna is the Vedas is just survey of all the Vedas. Vedya, what is knowable? The only thing knowable after studying the entire Vedas is to know Krishna. So that will be described. Veda means knowledge. From Veda Dhatu, the word Veda has come. Vid means knowledge. There are different types of knowledge. All kinds of knowledge you can find in the Vedas, Dhanur Veda, Ayurveda, Rig Veda, Sama Veda, so many branches. But the objective is to understand Krishna. Vedash is survey, all kinds of knowledge, books, different types of books that we see today. The object should be to understand Krishna. So by studying the books of different types of knowledge, one comes to understanding that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then his knowledge is perfect, otherwise it is of no use. Therefore, Krishna says, Bahunam Janmanam Ante, and this knowledge will come, Jnanavan Mam Prapadyate. Even if you get the knowledge about the material world and you get the knowledge about the modes and all that, but still you don't, Mam Prapadyate. If you don't come and Prapadyate means surrender yourself, Mam, to Krishna. Krishna is saying it. So only when you reach the stage of your jnana is now ripened and you understood that Krishna is everything and you surrender to him, then your life is fruitful. Vasudeva Sarvamiti, because Krishna is everything. Parasya Brahmana Shakti. Whatever we see, whatever we experience, everything is Krishna's energy. Material world is expansion of Krishna's external energy, or the Bahiranga Shakti. Similarly, the spiritual world is also an expansion of his energy. The Brahma Jyoti, is also an expansion of Krishna's energy. So there is a Brahma Jyoti between the spiritual world, Vaikuntha Loka, and then we have the Goloka Vrindavan. So there's a, there's a surrounding it. There is that Brahma Jyoti or the whole that light sort of energy where the person is want to merge into. That is called the Brahma Jyoti. It is also Krishna's energy only, just Krishna only. Paramatma is also an expansion of Krishna, where Paramatma enters each and every atom and living entity is existing everywhere, but is one. So in Vishnu Purana, we have Ekadesha Sthitasyagner Jyotsna Vistarani Yatha Parasya Brahmana Shakti Sarvavedam Sarvedam Akhilam Jagat. So the Jagat, Akhila Jagat, that means nothing but manifestation of Krishna's energy. Parasya Brahmana Shakti. Para Brahman here is Krishna. So we are also Brahman because we are part and parcel of Krishna. So we are Brahman, but we are, we should not identify ourselves with the matter. We should stop identifying ourselves with the matter and think and understand that Aham Brahmasmi. Brahman is not like you become the God. Okay? That's a misconception. You are actually Brahman. You are actually part of this Krishna's energy. So that's very good. For example, Prabhupada has given that Mahatma Gandhi was an Indian, but he acted as a first class Indian. He did something unique for India. So therefore, Mahatma Gandhi is adored. So what he's saying is, so simply to realize that, oh, I am Brahman. Okay, I am, I belong to the whole Brahman. It's not perfection. That is avishuddha buddhaya. It's actually unclean intelligence. People thinking that I am this whole universe is unclean. It's aham brahmasmi. It doesn't mean like I am the universe. It means I am Brahman. That's it. I am not Parabrahman. Right? That is a mistake. So ye ravindaksha vimukta maninas Tvai Ashtabhaved Avishuddha Buddhaya. Does it mean simply understanding Aham Brahmasmi is not going to help because it is stated in the Shastra Aruhya Krichena Param Padam Tata Patanti Adha. Even by severe austerities and penances, if you come to merge with the Brahman, it's only Sayujya Mukti, there is always chance of falling down invariably. Aruhya Krichena Param Padam Tata Patanti Adha. Why? Now, Anardrita Yusman Angrahya. This is what is coming in this verse. One who has not realized the lotus feet of Krishna, he will definitely, if he goes to the spiritual world, merges in everything, but if he's not able to understand that Krishna's lotus feet is my destination, then he has to definitely fall back down. In the Bhagavatam, there are so many stories of big sannyasis who are very learned scholars, and even otherwise we hear them very nicely. They describe Shastra also, but they are entangled in politics. Why? Because they're thinking that this world is mithya, Jagan mithya. So they reject this world. And why are you coming to politics? Why are you coming in the mithya world? There is no realization at all. So Avishuddha Buddhya means Krishna. Here it is being spoken by Srila Prabhupada that ye ne ravindaksha vimukta mana. They're thinking that now we have become liberated. Just a thinking. But actually they're not really liberated because their buddhi is avishuddha. It's not pure. Intelligence is not clear. So even after so many austerities and penances, they come to Brahman realization because they have no realization of the lotus feet of Krishna. So they fall down again. So Srila Prabhupada doesn't want to name those people who are Mayavadis. And, they'll say that Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya, and then they go for philanthropic activity. So this is Maya. It is the last snare of Maya to think that I am God. So now we have failed to become minister, president, so many other posts, and so you become Brahman. So simply you have to realize that's all. That is knowledge. I am not. Brahman realization means that I am not the body. That's it. Brahman realization means you understand that the first lesson of Gita that I am not the body, I am spirit soul. That is called Brahmasmi. People misinterpret that phrase. Krishna says in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, Dehinosmin yatha dehi kaumanam yauvanam jara. So the preliminary knowledge is that, and this shloka from Bhagavad Gita chapter 18, Brahma bhuta prasannatma na shochati na kankshati samah sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labhate param. Srila Prabhupada is quoting this verse and saying that when actually a person gets liberated from the bodily concept, he is able to see the spiritual identity everywhere. Sama sarveshu bhuteshu pandita samadarshina. Pandita is able to see sama, equal eye, everything. Be it, very doctor or somebody, a priest or a Brahmin, or be it a Chandala, or whoever. Everybody is with equal eye. Mayavadi philosopher, they are thinking that after Brahman realization, there is no more activity. But that's not the fact. Actually, a real activity begins, what we truly do for Krishna. Yesterday, I was listening to Namnishra. I think yesterday or today, I was listening to Namnishra Das's Bhagavad. It was so nice the way he explained about how every morning we are coming, for the Mangalarti. So those who are not coming, you should try this out. 4:30, you come for the Mangalarti, just see the deities, and all you ask is, Krishna, how can I serve you? And Namashya Prabhu explained so well about how it's like we're applying for a job. And then we are applying for the job at Krishna's service. And then Krishna, just he says, just imagine that, maybe in the night in your dreams, Krishna says, okay, so you're so and so. He calls out your name and says that, see, I want this service. That is like the dream of any devotee. How will Krishna? He's always searching. How, Krishna? How can I serve you? That is the complete joy of the bhakti, of the bhakta. Person who's in bhakti. That's all he wants. So he's situated in the different. There'll be so many activities you'll be engaged when you're fully dedicated and surrendered to Krishna. So real activity, therefore, actually now what we're doing is not even activity. We're just doing things to fulfill our own material desires, and we are not at all able to come to the internal energy of the Lord and associate with the internal energy and do everything for Krishna. So Mangal Arati helps us to connect to Krishna and request him to please put me into your service. That is so beautiful. But naturally, we are also Brahman because we are part and parcel of God. Just as part and parcel of gold, we take a small piece of gold, it's also gold as a main chunk from which you took it out. Similarly, we are also got the same qualities as Krishna, but we are small in quantity. So part is never equal to whole. So Krishna says, Bhakti Yoga. Sorry. Traigunya Vishaya. So material world activities of the material world begin to act in such a way that you become liberated at the end and you go back to Godhead. So the activities that you do shouldn't be just eating, sleeping, mating, defending. Then, the material world is compared to banyan tree, which the root is going upward. So meaning the material world is created from the spiritual world. It's coming from there. Eko Narayana Asik. In the spiritual world, there is always Narayana. Even Shankaracharya says Narayana Avyaktat Para. Spiritual world is nothing to do with material world. It's created like a banyan tree. Its root it takes its root and it is created. So the seed of creation is the spiritual world. Seed comes from the spiritual world. Creation is coming from spiritual world. So God or Narayana. So the material world is described as Urdhva Moolam, means upside down. In other words, it's a reflection. Just like if you stand on the shore of a lake, you will see the trees upside down. So in Brahma Samhita, it is said, Srishti Sthiti Pralaya Sadhana Shakti Reka Chayeva Yasya Bhuvanati Bibharti Durga. A superintendent deity of this material world is Goddess Durga, Durga Shakti. So Lord is creating and he creates, the material nature as well. And she then creates a material world based on his instructions. So Srishti Sthiti Pralaya Sadhana Shakti Reka, Krishna's energy. Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita, Bhumirapo Nalo Vayu. The material energy is his energy. Energy is always compared with feminine part and energetic is compared with the male part. So Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Aham Bija Pradapita. So he's a seed-giving father. Bijoham Sarvabhutanam, again in 7.10. So he's the original seed of this whole material world. And from there, from the spiritual world, it is being expanded. Urdhva Moolam Adha Shakam Ashwatham Prahur Avyayam. Avyayam means eternal. Material energy is eternal. There are three kinds of energies, right? Supreme Personality of Godhead is equal to material. The material energy is also coming from Krishna, the spiritual energy and the marginal energy, all coming from Krishna. Material energy, Bhumirapo Nalo Vayu, is created with all these different elements. Earth, water, fire, air, ether. Spiritual energy, Vaikuntha Loka is Paras, Tasmat, Tu Bhava, Anya Avyakta, Sanatana. It is eternal, spiritual world. And in between, there is a Tatastha Shakti, or, in between marginal energy, which is where we are, existing. We sometimes, when we are doing devotional service and we are in the spiritual side, and then spiritual energy, and then when we get lost running after material desires, we immediately come into the external energy or the material world side of it. So Jiva Bhutas are actually Prakriti, not Purusha. So we are learning this. Why are we learning this? Because this chapter is Purushottam Yoga, and in this chapter, in this section, Krishna is actually explaining to us that the living entities think of themselves to be Purusha and they lord it over the material nature, but in reality, they are themselves, bound by the material nature, and so they are also controlled by the material nature. And Krishna has explained Bhoktaram Yajna Tapasa. I am the enjoyer of all the sacrifices. So Krishna is the only Parama Purusha. But and then if you look at the Purusha in the earth, in that case there is no male, female, both men and women equally they are exploiting the nature. And so they're all thinking that I am the Purusha, I am the enjoyer, but actually only Krishna is the Purusha. We will enjoy when we understand our position. So the material world is eternal and Krishna is and the living entities are also eternal. We are avyaya nahanyate hanyamane sharire. We are nahanyate. The soul doesn't die. Hanyamane sharire. Even when the body is gone. The material world is eternal in this sense because it's Krishna's energy. If Krishna is eternal, then his energy is also eternal. But manifestation is temporary. Bhutva praliyate. Now and then there will be pralay and then there will be again creation. So creation, distribution, creation, distribution. So that is why we say that it is temporary. Although it is there, it's Krishna's energy. So it's always there. Janmadhyasya yata is coming from Srimad Bhagavatam, verse 1, chapter 1, canto 1. Janmadhyasya yata. That is a shloka. I haven't put it fully here. There are so many energies within you. They are not always manifest, but at times they get manifest. So they are called Achintya Shakti. Things are happening. We can't calculate. It is inconceivable energy that Krishna has. He creates the material world by his inconceivable energy. In Bhagavad Gita 5.8, it's explaining how Mahavishnu, simply by his breathing, he creates so many universes. And in every universe, there is a Vishnu and there is a Brahma coming out and there is a whole creation and distribution happening. Similar, this material world is external energy, but it's not false like how the Mayavadi says Jagan Mithya, Brahma Satya, Jagan Mithya. You can't say exactly false per se because they're saying false because it comes to an end. But it's real. Only thing is, it's temporary. So in the Vaishnava philosophy, we don't use the terminology that it's false. It has come from truth, so it is truth. Purnamidam, Purnamada, Purnamidam, Purnat, Purnam Udachyate Saran, Sri Isha Upanishad. So it's perfect, but it is being misused. So we're going to see how it is being misused. Krishna says that he is enjoyer, right? He says Bhoktaram Yajna Tapasa, Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. And then he says he's a proprietor of everything. Nothing belongs to us. But unfortunately, what do we want to do? We want to dismiss Krishna only from our lives. We want to be the enjoyer of the material world. This thought is Maya. The world is not Maya. This thought that we are having is Maya. Intention of living entities to enjoy the material world to satisfy his own senses, that is Maya. And we are becoming entangled just to try to enjoy this material world. Scientists, philanthropists, politicians, what are they all doing? They want to enjoy as much as possible. They don't even want to think of tomorrow. So there is answer in the Bhagavad Gita. Daivi Hyesha Gunamayi Mama Maya Duratyaya. So what do people do? Daivi Hyesha Gunamayi Mama Maya. My Maya is so powerful. And then what do they do? The people are trying to enjoy their conditioned souls. Straigunya Vishaya Veda Nistraigunya Bhavarjana. Krishna advises Arjuna, be Nistraigunya Bhava. Become above these three modes. So Vedas also tell us if you make such and such sacrifice, you need to make sacrifices. Then you'll be elevated to higher planetary systems. You can become even demigods. Anyone can become even demigods. And they can enjoy the beautiful women. They can have higher standard of life. Yam imam pushpitam vacham vedavada rata partha nanyat ashtiti vadina. So this is verse 2.42. So we must understand what is this material world, how is it working. So again, we need to remember that since the Vedas are telling us how to do sacrifices and become demigods and how to enjoy higher planetary systems, higher sensual gratifications, but that is not ever the aim of a devotee because he knows that All those are temporary. He has to come on, he has to come back. It's very important to keep on remembering. So one who understands the constitutional of this material world, how it is working, why are we here, why are we struggling so hard, what is our duty, everything that's happening is happening because of some past karma or some past desire. So not only to get out of the material entanglement, but how to engage. It's very stupid, Srila Prabhupada says, to think that I'll just be free and merge. That's not how it happens. You have to be engaged. You can never be simply doing nothing. But simply to get out of is not the business. You have to get employed. If you're giving up all your sense attachments, you're not into enjoying everything because you want to do everything for Krishna. You enjoy the thought that I'm offering everything to Krishna. So suppose you are employed in a place that you don't like, you want to change, simply you resign. It's not good. You must take another nice post. Similarly, what happens is if you're giving up all your different material desires, you can't simply give up everything and sit down. You have to engage them again in something new. What is something new? That something new is devotional service. Sorry. So if you engage yourself and attach yourself to Krishna, then only then you'll be successful in maintaining the detachment to cut this tree. So our main job is to remember that we are always eternal servant of Krishna. That's the perfection of life. And if you're doing eternal service of the Lord, you become perfect. You become mukta. Muktir hitva anyatha rupam swarupena vyavasthitihi. This is mukti. Mukti is to be freed from useless activities because we are in the bodily concept, just like the monkey. He was very active. We have seen this example in earlier classes also. In Vrindavan, Vairagi, he lives in the forest. The monkey looks like a Vairagi, no cloth, nothing. But the monkeys, as the Vairagis also have no cloth, monkeys also have no cloth. They live in the forest, they eat fruits, but they're rascal number one. So the moment they get an opportunity, they want things. So Falgu means less valuable, less important. Falgu River, is a Gaya. In Gaya, Srila Prabhupada is talking to us. On the bed of the river, you will find sand dry, but if you push a hand a little, you will find water. So it is called Phalgu Vairagya. It's actually not real. It's just external. You think you have controlled all your senses and you think that you have really reached it, but you're not reached it. Vairagya is when you become free from sense enjoyment. That is Vairagya. Jnana and Vairagya, they are two things. They help us to purify our existence. So just like the European and American boys, they become Vairagis. They were actually hippies. They were engaged in sex, free sex, and they had all these drugs. But then Srila Prabhupada, just by the power of his chanting and his explaining the Gita and Bhagavatam, earlier they were into all these, all the four things they were doing: illicit sex, intoxication, meat eating, gambling, but they actually gave up everything for the sake of Krishna. That is Vairagya. The energy is utilized for Krishna service. It's not like you give up everything and do nothing. No, you're doing devotional service. They are preaching, they go and preach all over the world. And it's the duty of Indians. Unfortunately, the Indians are very callous. That's why we had Saraswati Thakur, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, how he advises Srila Prabhupada to go to the West and speak about this knowledge. Why? Because Indians are very callous, they're very careless, they don't value what is being in us, what is there in the scriptures. So he actually spread the message in the West, and then when it came back to India, from the West, it started getting accepted here. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has advised that all Indians, it is our responsibility. Bharata Bhumite Manusha Janma Haile Yara Janma Sarthaka Kari Kara Para Upkara. You need to help each other by doing para. Para means spiritual. Upkara. You help people elevate themselves into God consciousness. Therefore, it's the greatest humanitarian work, greatest welfare activity to distribute Krishna consciousness. The duty of all of us. If we are Indians, got this knowledge, we can't simply sit. We need to do whatever we can to talk about Krishna to whoever we can, and whatever ways we can help them to go back to Godhead and understand that this world is not really the home. So we have come to Vrindavan for the purpose, and for those who are actually serious to render, they join the movement, heart and soul. This is what Prabhupada's lecture. It was a long one, but I thought it was a good one. The branches of the tree, now we look at 15.2. The branches of the tree extend downward and upward. They are nourished by the three modes of material nature. The twigs are the objects of the senses, and this tree has its roots going down, which bound to fruitive actions of the human society. This is the material world. It's a tree. How is it nourished? By modes and by different fruitive acts performed by people. Different species manifest according to the proportion of modes. Based on the proportion of mode which is most predominant in you, you will get body accordingly. That's what it means. Sometimes you find that a tract of land is barren. Why? Because there's not enough water. And sometimes there's another tract which is very green. Similarly, if we perform modes of material nature proportionally greater in quantity, then the species of life are manifested or we get that body accordingly. So here we can see how it's being talking about transmigration as well. The branches of the banyan tree are spread in all directions. In lower parts of these branches, there are living entities like human beings, animals, horses, cows, dogs, cats. On the upper part are the higher forms, demigods, gandharvas, higher species of life. As a tree is nourished by water, so this tree is nourished by the three modes of material nature. And just as some tracts of land are barren and some tracts are green, depending on availability of water, similarly, depending on the prevalence of different modes, different species of life will be manifested. The twigs are considered to be the sense objects, sense, touch, etc. So, by development of different modes of nature, we develop different senses, eyes, ears, nose, all these come because of the development of different modes of nature in time of creation. Through the senses, we enjoy all the sense objects. The senses are associated with the enjoyment of different sense objects. The subsidiary roots are attachments and aversions, which are byproducts of different varieties of suffering and sense enjoyment. The tendencies towards piety and impiety are considered to develop from secondary roots. The real root is from Brahmaloka, and other roots are in the human planetary systems. So after one enjoys the results of all the activities, then he has to come down, like I said a while ago. This planet of human beings, the earth is actually the field of activity. So you can see in this beautiful picture, it has got a spiritual world, which is also beautiful. There are, it is self-effulgent. There's a long description in the Bhagavatam, also few times, also in the Gita, and which says talks about how it's fully self-effulgent and how beautiful it is. And then the reflection is, you can see here in this, yes, you get one universe being reflected like this is one Brahma. And then we have all the different demigods here, right? Closest to spiritual world. And as you go below, you can see people doing dharma, artha, kama, moksha. And then those who are doing impious activities, there are roots which go downward, which make them go below. And then they're lost here. They get all these different animal species and everything, or they go further down to the different planetary systems, which are hellish planets. So this is a very beautiful representation of this material world as an inverted banyan tree. So the banyan, what we can see is, this is a reflection on desire. The roots, they grow, which if they grow upwards, then they're taking us to Brahma Loka. If they're growing downwards, they are taking us to Bhu Loka. And it's attachment and aversion, which is causing everything, dualities. And we already saw what the leaves are, what the twigs are, what the tips of branches are, and what are all the different involvement of the living entity. They hop from one branch to another, up is down is up actually in the material world, because it's just a reflection upside down. So these are the points which are just shared in the form of a picture. Again, here there's another graphical representation of 15.1 and 2. What do we know? We know that the original tree is in the spiritual world and our whole material world is just a reflection. We know that the real root of this, we also learned about the three modes of nature, and the real root of this whole material existence is going upwards, coming from the spiritual world. So Brahma Loka. So secondary roots are in human planetary system itself, and they grow downwards and spread in all directions. Subsidiary roots are attachments and aversions, and they are byproducts of different kinds of suffering and sense enjoyments. And the tendency towards piety and impiety are considered to develop from these secondary roots. So this is all very, very important. We can just keep on thinking about it to understand this tree. Why should we understand this tree? Because we have to cut it with the sword of detachment, which Krishna will say in the next verses. The branches are upper and lower are all together. They form the 15 planetary systems. And then we have the lower parts are the human beings and everything, and upper parts are the demigods and all. And the leaves are the Vedic hymns, the twigs are the sense objects, the tips are the senses itself, and the fruits are the karmas, dharma, artha, kama, and moksha, which are also there on the tree. So what do the living beings do? They jump from one tree to another. They don't see how the tree expands, where it ends. Although living entities are eternal fragments of Krishna, they struggle with their limited senses. So 15.3 to 4, I think we'll start next class because this 3 to 4 has quite a bit of explanation. So 3 to 4 we'll do next class. It's late, so we will end a little early today. I'm stopping the share. So we've just finished 15.1 and 2 today. We'll go to 3 and 4 next class. So anybody would like to share something? Hare Krishna. Pancha kalpataru vyasya kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. My video is just going off every time I turn it on.
Thank you, Mataji. Nice.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you, Virendra Prabhu, Jalpa Mataji, and Prabhakar Prabhu for joining the class. We'll continue with 15.3 and 4 on Thursday next week. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you.